What's up, YouTube? This is the 82 podcast. This time, we're going to take a look at Steph Curry. Now, Steph Curry was born March 14th, 1988 in Akron, Ohio. And coincidentally enough, an interesting fact, he was born in the same hospital as LeBron James. And for those who don't know, his father, Del Curry, played in the NBA. His father was not a all-time great like Steph. He was a role player. And so he mostly grew up in Charlotte because his dad played for the Hornets. And he would play high school basketball in Charlotte, North Carolina. He went to Charlotte Christian School. And he would go to Davidson, which Davidson is a pretty small school. It's still Division I, but it's pretty small. And he'd have a good collegiate career. So he'd play 3 years at Davidson. 06-07 was his first year there. He put up 21 points. 07-08 he put up 25 points. 08-09 he put up 28 points. And he declared for the draft in 2009. And he was selected 7th by the Golden State Warriors. Now, this Warriors team, historically, the Warriors have been a good franchise. They won some in the 40s, 50s, 60s, not 60s, 70s. So, they kind of fallen off of prominence. I mean, they had some good flashes, like in the 90s with Chris Mullin, Tim Hardaway. But in the 2000s, they were pretty bad. And Steph joins this team. The year prior, 08-09, they won just 29 games. So he comes to Golden State for the 2009-2010 season. And he puts up 17 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, and 1.9 steals. But Monte Ellis was originally the star of this team. Monte was just 24 at this time, and he was putting up 25 points per game on 44% shooting. And nobody, at least at the time, I think we expected Curry to be an all-star at some point, but we didn't expect him to take off like he did. And it was kind of a slow start. So that 09-10 season, they go 26-56. Obviously, they don't make the playoffs. But going into his second year, they start improving some. They go 36-46. And Curry, in his second year, he puts up 18 points per game. And he puts up 48% shooting altogether, 44% from three. Monte Ellis had 24 points per game. And they had David Lee on the team, Reggie Williams, Al Thornton. So this team wasn't good enough to get it done. And 11-12 is when it started changing some because they brought in Klay Thompson. He was drafted that year. And although he wouldn't make an immediate impact, this is when you started to see flashes of what was to come. Curry, who had actually been hurt that year, it worked out to be a blessing in disguise because since Curry was hurt, he didn't get to really break out earlier on. So if you look at those earlier years, like 2010 to 2012, he was putting up, like I said, 17, 18, 14. So because he got hurt in 11-12, he didn't get this giant contract because he wasn't putting up good numbers. They didn't know if he was going to be a good player or not. And this is what made them into a championship caliber team because they didn't pay Curry all this money, they were able to get better players down the road and keep players. That's part of the reason why they were able to get Kevin Durant later. That's part of the reason why they were able to keep this core together and having Andre Iguodala. And so anyways, going into the 12-13 season, he recovers from his ankle injuries. And he just signed a 4-year, $44 million contract with the Warriors. And at the time, many basketball writers considered this a risky move for Golden State because they thought Curry was going to be a bust. They didn't think he was going to break out like he was. And this is when we started to see the Splash Brothers come together. This is when they got dubbed the Splash Brothers. And in the 2012-13 season, Curry would play 78 games. And he put up, at that point, a career high 22.9 points per game. And that would be 7th in the NBA. And he would put up 6.9 assists per game, 1.6 steals. And he established a new single three-point record. And I'm going to just say his three-point record to be shattered later because his record was just 272 three-pointers, which eclipsed Ray Allen's record of 269 in the 2005-2006 season. This is when this is when you started to see splash getters come together. Curry wasn't an all-star yet in 2012, 2013. But like I said, he set the record and he started to see how efficient he was. And Golden State that year would make the playoffs. They'd go 47-35. They'd beat the Denver Nuggets in the first round, and then they'd advance to the conference semifinals against the San Antonio Spurs, where they would lose in 6 games. And this is when Klay started to take a jump too, because Klay Thompson would put up 16 points per game, and he'd put up 40% from 3. And this is when they got Andrew Bogut, Harrison Barnes. This is when the championship team started to come together. Draymond Green was a rookie that year. And like I said, Green was because he was a rookie, he wasn't playing much, but you're starting to see the big picture come together. Mark Jackson was their coach, and a lot of people give Mark Jackson credit more than Steve Kerr because he was there in the beginning. But going into the 13-14 season, this would be Curry's first All-Star appearance. And he appeared in 78 games that year, putting up 24 points per game and 8.5 assists per game and 1.6 steals per game. So this is when the Warriors became playoff contenders. They went 51-31. They had the 4th best defense in the NBA and the 12th best offense. And to go with Curry's 24 points per game, Klay Thompson would average 18 points per game. And this is when they got Andre Iguodala. David Lee was still on that team. Jermaine O'Neal was on that team. So they started getting better role players. And in the first round, they would lose in 7 games to the Los Angeles Clippers. And that 7th game was pretty close. I mean, the Clippers just won 126-121. Now, the going in prior to the start of the 2014-15 season, this is when the Warriors got rid of their head coach. And instead, they went in the direction of Steve Kerr. And he wanted to make the Golden State Warriors this really fast-paced run and gun. And he wanted to give Curry more freedom to shoot. And he wanted to help this team evolve. So, for example, on February 4th, Curry scored a season-high 51 points in a win over the Dallas Mavericks. And he won the three-point contest. And this is when the Golden State Warriors arrived, because that year they went 67-15. They were the first best defense in the NBA and the second best offense. And Curry, for that year, would average 23 points per game, 7 assists, and 2 steals. And he'd put up an efficient 48% from the field, 44% from 3, and 91% from the free throw line. And Klay Thompson would put up 21 points per game. Draymond Green would put up 11 and 8 rebounds. Andre Iguodala was significant on the bench. Andrew Bogut was a significant post defender. They got Leonardo DeBosa. So this team goes all the way to the finals. They're matched up with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Prior to that, they beat the Houston Rockets in the conference finals, the Memphis Grizzlies in the semifinals, and the Pelicans in the first round. Now, in the NBA Finals, it's kind of unfortunate because the Cavs were hurt. They were missing Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Kyrie went down in Game 1, and Love, I think, went down in the first round, actually. And LeBron had a really good series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, against the Golden State Warriors. LeBron would average 35 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game, and 1 steal. So he was putting up crazy numbers, and he's the only player to ever lead both teams in every statistical category. But the thing is, Steph Curry didn't get Finals MVP because Andre Iguodala put the clamps on LeBron. I know I said LeBron averaged 35 points per game, but it was on 39% shooting. So this is kind of a mark against Curry because although Curry had 26 points per game, he didn't win Finals MVP. And going into the 2015-16 season, the Warriors started out real hot. So they would start the season winning their first 24 games. So that would be the third longest streak in NBA history just to start out the season. And they would finish the year with 73-9, which is the best record in NBA history. And this is when Curry takes off even more because Curry shatters the 3-point record, his prior record that he set. So Curry would put up 402 3-pointers that year, which is a record that still stands. But it was his efficiency that makes it so crazy because he would average 50% from the field, 45% from 3, and this is on 11 3-point attempts per game. And he would average 90% from the free throw line. So his overall averages for the year were 30 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2.1 steals. And Klay Thompson was putting up 22 points per game. And Draymond Green was putting up 14 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. So this team started what became the 3-point revolution. They changed the entire NBA. Because if you look at prior to this season, teams didn't take as much 3-pointers. Not even close. So if you go back to, like, say, the 2001 season or 2002, their leaders in the 3-pointers would be Antonio Walker with 221, Ray Allen with 229. And if you go back, like, say, 1987, Bird was the leader with 3-pointers, and he just made 90 of them. So you do see how much this team changed, how many 3-pointers teams take? Because Curry had 400 3-pointers that year, which is a record I don't think will ever be broken. And on top of that, Klay Thompson would have over 200 3-pointers that year. So this 3-point revolution is still going on today, where you see teams are just taking 3-pointer after 3-pointer. It's one of the main shots nowadays. And back in the 90s and 80s, the three-pointers, they weren't taken near as much. Today, it's the preferred shot. Everybody wants to be a Steph Curry because analytics will show you it's better to take the three-pointer or go inside and take a close shot. There's not really a mid-range game anymore. And you can contribute this all to Steph Curry. But the thing is, with all these players trying to be like Curry, none of them are. Curry's efficiency is what stands out. How many players do you know can take 11 three-point attempts per game and make 45% from the three-point line? It's insane. So, this team was supposed to win. Now, they had a very easy first round. They beat the Rockets in 5. They had a very easy semifinals, beating the Portland Trailblazers in 5. But going into the Western Conference Finals, Oklahoma City Thunder is who they were matched up against with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. And the Oklahoma City Thunder originally took a 3-1 lead. But Curry would come back and win the next 3 games and come back from being down 3-1. And it was his shooting that got him out of it. So, at the time, this is what I remember. Most people were saying, wow, that was close. They almost lost, but they got this one in the bag. The Cavaliers don't have a chance. And I remember, right after Game 4, when the Warriors won 108-97, when they were up 3-1, I remember someone who was a Cavs fan telling me the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to win it all. And I thought they were crazy. Are you kidding me? There's no way this Cavs team is going to win. And it happened. And specifically going into that Game 7, the Warriors had a home court advantage. And Kyrie Irving of the Cleveland Cavaliers hit one of the most clutch shots in NBA history, the game-winning 3. It wasn't a buzzer beater, but it was the game winner. And that's another mark on Steph Curry's legacy because he doesn't win the Finals MVP in 2015, and they blew a 3-1 lead in the Finals when they are the most favored team ever, probably, in any sport. I mean, a 73-win team. Come on, they were supposed to win it. Now, going into the 16-17 season, the Golden State Warriors would sign Kevin Durant. And this is great because they get their championships, but it also comes with another expense to Curry's legacy because Durant is now the best player on the Warriors. It's not Curry's team anymore. And some people will look at this as a mark on Curry, but Curry was the type of guy, you got to look at his character. He's a very humble dude. How many people who are the head of a team can take the back seat and let another guy who was their competitor come in to win? Not very many guys can do that. So Durant joins the Warriors, and I mean everybody knew the Warriors were going to win that year. So they go 67-15, and Curry would put up 25 points per game that year on an elite 41% from 3 with 10 attempts per game. And Durant would put up 25 points, and Klay Thompson would put up 22 points. So this was a very elite offensive team. And they'd go back to the finals where they're matched up with the Cleveland Cavaliers again. And this time they would beat them in 5. It wasn't even close. And Kevin Durant would get finals MVP off of 35 points per game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists on 50, 40, 90 shooting. Curry had a great series too, 26 points per game, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals on 44% shooting, 38% from 3. Now, going into the 2018 season, they went 58-24. And they go to the conference finals with ease. They beat the first two teams, the Spurs and the Pelicans. But in the conference finals, the Houston Rockets were favored to win that series. They went 67-15 that year. That was their best team, record-wise. And to make matters worse for the Warriors, this was on the Rockets' home court. So realistically, the Rockets should have won this series. But they pretty much gave it to the Warriors. The Rockets went 7 for 44 from the three-point line. And they would lose the game 92-101. And you would think with that coaching, they would try some new strategy if you're missing that many shots. And that's a point I want to bring up about this three-point revolution. It's not all good. Because I always say the team that lives by the three ball dies by the three ball. If you're so reliant on shooting threes, the second you're not making them, you're not going to win a game. So this Houston Rockets team, they wanted to beat the Warriors by being the Warriors. And that doesn't work like that. And yes, I know Chris Paul was not in that seventh game, but James Harden was there, and he didn't come through. He went 2 for 13 from the three-point line. You would think they would try something else as a team, but regardless, the Warriors won, and they went to the finals against the Cleveland Cavaliers again. And what was different about this Cavs team is Kyrie Irving was gone. They traded him for Isaiah Thomas. And this was just a sweep. They beat them 4-0. So now Curry has 3 championships. And again, Kevin Durant is finals MVP. Now, going into the 18-19 season, they wanted to be the first team since the early 2000s Lakers to go on a three-peat. They wanted to join the ranks of the Chicago Bulls of the 90s and the early 2000s Lakers and the 60s Celtics of being in the company of having a three-peat. And unfortunately, this didn't happen for this team. And so this team dealt with a lot of injuries at the end of the year. And I would say dysfunction. There's a very well-known, I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, there's a very well-known clip of Draymond Green and Kevin Durant arguing. And this was during a timeout of a game. And Draymond was talking trash to Durant. And this is why Kevin Durant would leave. But I'm not going to get into that in this video. This is about Curry, not Durant. But this team also signed DeMarcus Cousins. So now they have Steph Curry at the point, Klay Thompson at the shooting guard, Kevin Durant at small forward, Draymond Green at power forward, and DeMarcus Cousins at center. They'd have Andre Iguodala coming off the bench. They'd have guys like Sean Livingston. Andrew Bogut was still there. So Durant would be hurt in the playoffs early on. And he didn't play, like, for example, in the Western Conference Finals against the Portland Trailblazers. But the Golden State Warriors still swept them 4-0. Because this is how good that Warriors team was. In the Western Conference Finals, Curry put up 36 points per game, 8 rebounds, 7 assists on 46% field goal shooting, and 42% from 3, and 93% from the free throw line. And I specifically remember this. During this series, before they started in the finals with the Raptors, all the comments I were reading were, Warriors in 4, we don't even need Durant. Which I'll bring up why I mentioned that in a minute. So they go into the finals. Game 1, the Raptors take it 118 to 109. And this was off of Pascal Siakam's best game of his life, so to speak. He puts up 32 points. And Curry would put up 34 points. Now, going into that game 2, the Warriors would win 109-104. Curry would put up 23 points. And this was one of his this is one of his worst games. He only averaged 30% from the 3-point line that game. But they still get the victory. Now, game 3, the Raptors take it 123-109. And Kevin Durant wasn't back yet. And Klay Thompson didn't play because he was injured now. Now, going into that game 5, the Raptors won 105-92. So at this point now, the Raptors are up 3-1. And Steph Curry would only put up 27 points in that game. He had one of his poor shooting nights. He went 40% from the field, 22% from 3. And he would have an efficient free throw line night, but during this time, people were saying the Warriors are going to come back from being down 3-1. And Klay Thompson played in that game too. I mean, he had 28 points. So they're saying Kevin Durant's going to play in the next game. And the Warriors, this is really unfortunate for the Warriors. They would win at although they'd win at 106-105. Durant, off the pressure of not wanting to lose the championship and risk losing a three-peat, he comes out and he plays 11 minutes. Now, he was very efficient in those 11 minutes. He would go 60% from the field and he'd score 11 points in just 11 minutes. And DeMarcus Cousins would have a good game. Klay Thompson would have a decent game. He had 26 points, but his shooting wasn't quite as efficient as he wanted to be. Curry had 31 points. So it's looking like they could come back, but Durant would get hurt. He would tear his meniscus because he rushed coming back. So this caused even more problems for him. And the reason I brought up earlier about Warrior fans saying we don't even need Durant, this would become a common talking point from them is, oh, we only lost because we didn't have Durant. But earlier in the series, they were saying, oh, we don't even need Durant. I mean, it's not important. It's just an interesting talking point that they had. But going into Game 6, this was a very good game. And Steph Curry, I mean, he had a pretty bad game. He only had 21 points on 35% shooting. But it was Klay Thompson who was taking over at the end of the game. And he would have 30 points, but he would get hurt at the end of the game. So he would go out. And he would miss the next 2 years with injuries. So you knew this Warriors team didn't have a chance. Now, they became the wounded Warriors, so to speak. And that's it. The Raptors would win 114-110. It was pretty close throughout the game. The Warriors were fighting hard, but at the end of the day, the Raptors took it. And they won their first championship at the Warriors' expense. And the Warriors didn't three-peat. And Curry would miss the next year. He'd only play 5 games. And the Warriors would only win 15 games that year. And in the 2021 season, they would go 39-33, but they would miss the play-in tournament. So this is when people started saying, oh, the Warriors are falling off, Curry's done. But the 21-22 season, which is where we're currently at, the Warriors had a very hot start. Klay Thompson came back this year, and currently they're 43-19. They're the first best defensive rated team. And they reinvented their team by getting younger guys. So, for example, they got guys like Otto Porter Jr. They brought back Andre Iguodala. They have Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton II, Moses Moody. And I should mention James Wiseman hasn't even played a game yet. But Curry came back hot. He's putting up 25 points per game. His shooting efficiency's down, but he's still good. He's averaging 42% from the field, 37% from 3 on 12 attempts. And they're a serious contender right now. Klay Thompson's putting up 17 points on 42% shooting, which is good to see him back after 2 years. So Steph Curry's even in the talks of the MVP race. Now, this is where we're at right now with Steph Curry's legacy. He's an 8-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champ. He had a steals title in 2016, 3-time NBA champion, 7-time All-NBA, 2-time MVP, and he was the 22 All-Star Game MVP. So, I don't think he's fallen off. I think he's still going to be here for a while, especially because his game's predicated on shooting, not so much athleticism. And to me, Curry is definitely a top 20 player of all time. He changed the game. And here's the thing. A lot of people, anytime someone changes the game in a way, they get a lot of hate. If it's a center, they say, oh, they only dominated because they're so big. Well, what do you want them to do? They're going to find ways to score. And Curry found his way to score. He's the greatest shooter of all time. And this year, he passed Ray Allen for the all-time three-point field goals list. So, great players find ways to be great. And I don't like the argument that Curry's overrated. I think he's proven himself. I mean, he had a very late start. He didn't become an all-star until he was 25. Didn't win a championship until he was 26. But to me, he's in the conversation now even to be a top 3 point guard of all time. And who knows if he gets another championship this year or maybe next year. What could that add to his resume? So let me know what your thoughts are on Steph Curry. Thanks for watching.